In 1999, before I made my conscious decision to take my career path into the area of film and film studies, I had a film appreciation class at my college that I was going to. And in that class, I was introduced to the African-American filmmaker, or at least the works of the African-American filmmaker Spike Lee. Coming from New York, having been born in Queens, being a native son of the tri-state area, I was familiar with Spike Lee and the fact that he was a very iconic director, but I had never actually seen any of his films. The film that I would watch in that film appreciation class would be Do the Right Thing. I really loved this film, and I loved Spike Lee's style of direction, the aesthetic that he uses, how he mixed and intertwined culture and social criticism, and it really spoke to a person coming from New York. And if you've never seen the film Do the Right Thing, now is the best time to actually watch it. You would not believe how relevant and how close to our modern struggle that we're going through right now this film is, and how a film made 30 years ago can still be so poignant and so meaningful. The film is dense with commentary about community and racial tensions. It paints a powerful picture of what it was like growing up in the late 80s in Brooklyn, New York, and Bed-Stuy if you were a black person. And one scene in particular really affected me, and I wasn't the only one, as it's been the center of debate about this particular film ever since it premiered back in 1989. And for years after having watched this, I would always go back to this scene and just mull it over and just try to understand what was going on, because it was one that really kind of left me in a way that I was uncomfortable and I wanted to understand why. Do the Right Thing takes place in the neighborhood of Bed-Stuy, Brooklyn, New York, on the hottest day of the summer. The film takes us around the block as we meet and get to know all the local characters in the neighborhood. Mookie, Spike Lee's character, is a pizza delivery boy from the corner pizzeria owned by Danny Aiello's character Sal. The Italian-owned business is located and services a neighborhood that is predominantly black. All the same, it is a staple of that community. As one of the Tri-States area's native sons, born in Queens, New York myself, let me tell you, the sanctity of the neighborhood pizzeria is something that is unheard of. To this day, I can remember the sights, sounds, and the tastes of being at local Johnny's Pizzeria in my neighborhood, where I get a couple of slices and play in the arcade cabinets. Sal is your typical proud Italian business owner, not without a small degree of visible prejudice. The relationship between Sal and the neighborhood is very much of a microcosm of U.S. race relations. Sal is the proud white business owner that has built this fucking place with my bare fucking hands in the black neighborhood with predominantly black clientele. So tell me,
Sal, how come you got the brothers on the wall here?
We also meet the iconic Radio Raheem. The larger-than-life character, wonderfully portrayed by Bill Nunn, would be the lightning rod that would propel this film from being just another look at neighborhood culture in the 5 boroughs to poignant social criticism. Radio Raheem prowls the neighborhood with his large boombox, blasting Public Enemy's Fight the Power. A menacing figure, but also a wise street prophet, describing the never-ending battle between love and hate as portrayed in his golden knuckle rings. The film comes to a head after the sun sets on the neighborhood. Bugging out, the passionate local who previously expressed his distaste for Sal's very Italian-American wall of fame comes upon the pizza place demanding that Sal put representation on the wall. Emotions get heated quick and chaos begins to take hold of the scene. And Sal kills Raheem's radio.
I just killed your fucking radio.
Tensions reach their climax, and not for long, everybody is fighting everybody. The fight soon gets outside and the police are called. They come by and they swarm Radio Raheem. Bugging Out and Raheem are both subdued, and that's when things get really bad. Not unlike something pulled from today's headlines, one of the officers holds Radio Raheem in a chokehold. He is held there until he breathes his final breath, and then he's released and comes crashing to the pavement below. Another officer violently yells at him to get up, while the other officers look around at each other and at the neighborhood that just bore witness to their actions. They frantically pull Bugging out and throw him into a squad car, carrying Radio Raheem's corpse and throws him into another squad car, and then they drive away, leaving the neighborhood. The police killed Radio Raheem. Again, the police choked the life out of Radio Raheem. It's remarkable that a film made over 30 years ago can still be so relevant. It's undeniable so much has changed in the last 3 decades, but how is it that this is still an issue that desperately needs to be addressed? As Americans, we love to puff our chests and to celebrate the great strides we've reached in civil rights. We take pride that in the Civil War we took a position to abolish slavery, or that civil rights movements in the 60s ushered in generations where blacks and women could vote and are free to participate in everything that we had denied them in the first place. We take pride in that, while at the same time forgetting that the hundreds of years we had fought to keep them from these freedoms, all for the sake of conserving some delusion of what we called our way of life. What happens next is arguably the defining moment of the film, a scene which I alluded to earlier having no shortage of commentary or debate. As the neighborhood surrounds Sal's pizzeria, the local residents are justifiably angry about the death of Radio Raheem, and they are directing their anger towards Sal and the pizzeria. It's at that moment that the film pans over to Mookie, who is visibly conflicted. He empties out a trash can and launches it through the front window of the pizzeria. The crowd takes this as a cue and a small riot ensues. I confess, I looked at this scene very differently when I first saw it than when I do now. When I first saw this film, it troubled me. Up to the point in the film, I thought I understood Mookie. I thought I was convinced I understood the relationship between him and Sal and the neighborhood. I thought I connected with the subtext. I thought I understood the present conflict. My mind was so troubled, and I found it difficult to reconcile that apparent counterproductiveness of Mookie's wanton destructive action. It would take me years to really understand what was going on there. Even today, as brave activists hit the streets in the last few weeks to take a stand against police brutality, against inequality, against this systematic racism that is inherent in everything in our way of life, there's so many people, even still, that have raised their voices to respond with contempt and criticism. People that, much like a young me many years ago, just don't get it. There is such a convenient short-sightedness in the indignation towards the destruction of property in the shadow of a much greater injustice. My past self would make the argument that Mookie didn't need to stoop to that level. Again, completely missing the meaning behind the actions. I'd like to think I've grown as a person since then. And I think it's of value to everyone to watch this film and take a good look at this scene and try to understand what's going on and apply a little bit of self-reflection and to think about, if you can't relate to what's going on there, why? Why is it that you find it so hard to be angry over a couple of looters, a couple of burned buildings, a couple of charred police cars? Why is it that you find it yourself more angry at that than another black man being choked out by the police? The cliche hypothetical question that always comes up whenever there's discussion about this film is, did Mookie do the right thing? What about us? Are we doing the right thing? I'd like to think now that I understand a little bit better Mookie's actions and the end of Do the Right Thing. The film ends with 2 quotes, one from Martin Luther King and one from Malcolm X. Kind of like 2 sides of the whole argument about violence in society and violence as a form of protest and rebellion. So it's left for you to decide, how far does society need to stray? How much does society need to fail the people in it before we can really look past a little bit of destruction. Again, I recommend taking a look at Do the Right Thing and Spike Lee's catalog of films. And please, in these times that we're going through now, educate yourself to understand better the plight of our fellow man. Until we see each other next time, Godspeed and Black Lives Matter.